Steve Dangle, Adam Wilde, and Jesse Blake.
Let's go!
It's like old times all over again.
Adam, what's up, bro? I thought the vaccine worked. Whoa!
It did work. It did work. It worked. I'm here. I feel good. It's funny. Just to quickly run down what happened. I get a call from Jax on Friday night. Jax is, if you don't know, Jax is my co-host at Virgin Radio here in Toronto on the morning show. And she's like, hey, I tested positive. And she's like panicked. I'm like, okay, no problem. I'll just go get a test tomorrow. So in Canada, and I texted this to Alan Walsh. He couldn't believe it. We're rationing our COVID tests because we don't have enough. So the government was like, we're not giving them to you anymore. You have to go buy them. And they're 130, 140 bucks each or something like that for a PCR.
My wife paid 180 most recently, and I paid, I think it was about 160 so that I could go to Leafs Media Day.
Yeah, so there you go, right? So Natalie and I go the next day. We get our results. It's negative, and then the next morning I wake up. So this is Sunday. Supposed to go get my booster, and we're rationing those too. Essentially, I'm feeling a bit funny, and like it's dry air, so I'm assuming that my throat's just dry because of that. And then of course, I get the booster later on in the day. I'm starting to feel like headache and aches and whatever else. And I figured it might just be booster related. And then the next day it was like, oh, like this isn't just booster. Like you're not going to get, they talk about that COVID cough or whatever that you get. I had that and, a bit of congestion and runny nose or whatever. But it's funny, as much as I'm lucky, right? Felt like just a flu for me. But I think it would have been even milder had I not got the booster and had the side effects from the booster, probably. And what's shocking about it is that as quickly as it came, it left. So I sound nasally right now because there's obviously some remnants. But man, I'm so glad I have them, those vaccines, because honestly, it was here and gone. And I know that's not the case for everybody. And obviously I'm not trying to diminish how serious this will be for certain people. But the reality is for the majority of us, it's not going to be, thankfully, as serious as it would have been if it wasn't for those vaccines. So it feels good to actually be back because I wasn't sure I'd be back today. So it was nice. It's good to have you back. But that was a harrowing experience getting that Friday night phone call from you. Hey, so, the show that I do. No, because it was, hey, the show I do before yours or before ours? Yeah.
Yeah. Someone had COVID and we were both like, oh, fiddlesticks. What does that mean?
Jesse was like, okay, all right, have a good night.
I was like,
okay, nice speaking with you. Have a pleasant evening.
You said this feels like the before times to start off the show. And I was like, it's not the before times. This is just the times. It's been long enough to where this is just it. It's not the before. This is our reality. So
yeah,
I don't know. I've slumped into acceptance.
Yeah. Well, people got mad at me a couple days ago or a couple shows ago when I said, we got to learn to live with this thing. We do. This is what I'm talking about, right? Where the show is adjusting. We're going to be, obviously we're going to be remote today and then we're going to be remote tomorrow. And then we're back in studio Monday.
That doesn't mean walk butt ass naked into every establishment that you want.
It could. What are you into?
I mean, no, every establishment. There's somewhere that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, 100%. I think,
Baskin Robbins.
Ultimately, I think I'm thrilled with that it's gone. I sure as hell wouldn't want to do it again. But I had a cold in November that lasted longer than this, and I think that just goes to show why you get a vaccine and why it's important if you can get one. Obviously, I know there's some people that have exclusions and whatever. And the thing is, this thing spreads so quickly. Yeah. The other thing we were talking about on the air this morning is that Jax apologized and she's like, I know you have a child. And I was like, Jesus. And it reminded me of that first wave when, it's like when you got COVID, the assumption was that you were doing something you shouldn't have oughta. Right. You know what I mean? A lot of shame associated with it. And she was like, I'm just so sorry for how I've affected your life, Adam. And I said, Jax, it's a fucking virus. Like, this is what viruses do. They jump from host to host. And when we put up protections, they find a way around the protections. That's what viruses do. And so, like, my thinking was, like, I do think we got to get away from Canada, I think, more than the States. I think the States are probably looking at this a little bit differently. But, you know, in Canada, unless you were on that Sunwing flight to the Caribbean and you were, like, sticking Vaseline up your nose to fake a COVID test positive or a negative COVID test, like, which is what they were doing, by the way. That's how they all made sure. They all knew that, you know, one of them or two of them probably had Omicron because you can, you know, most people are probably going to be exposed to it. So they put Vaseline up their nose so that the test would come back. I did not know this. Yeah. You should read that story. It's nuts with the Quebec influencers. But, you know, at the end of the day, my thinking is that, like, we got to drop the shame part of this. It's a little ridiculous. You're not a part of a leper colony. You didn't do anything wrong. And, you know, it's time to just, like, go, okay, well, you had COVID. All right. So what are we going to do about it?
No, Adam, if you give me this, I'm going to kick your ass. I think that's the way to treat it. You should
make me feel bad about it.
Yeah.
As if we don't have enough to feel bad about, you know?
I'm going to call your mom. No, I'm not going to complain to you. I'm going to call your mom.
You know what? You should
be like, who did you raise?
Subtweet me.
I should do that too.
Don't tag me in it. Subtweet me, man.
I will.
Anyway, that's been my experience. I thought the guilt thing was worth bringing up because I think there's a lot of people that are like, you know, I haven't got it yet. And that's because I've been vigilant. I think at this point, if you haven't got it yet, you've been lucky. Yep. And you should look at it that way. And good for you. That's great. But Omicron is so, you know, you can debate whether or not how severe it is, whatever. It may be a less severe version, but it is far more transmissible. So if you haven't got it yet, you're lucky. Or maybe you have and you didn't even know it. And that's the thing, you know, you talk to any doctor, they're like, you know, you've probably been exposed to COVID already. You just didn't know it. And so, yeah, so here we are. We're going to be doing this show. And it's funny because Steve had to stay up till 3:00 doing LFR, like 3 a.m.
Yep.
Woke up at 7 this morning.
Yep.
And we have got one of the heaviest news days I've ever seen. Like, I called Jesse on Monday and he's like, man, you always miss the shows with the big news.
I know.
And it started with, like, Subban for Weber, right? Like way back in the day.
Yeah.
But
I can't even refill my coffee because my wife's online teaching upstairs.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because she's like, so you record when? I'm like, the same time as always. And she's like, right. Where? I'm like,
she was
where?
expecting you to be here.
Yeah, the basement.
Yeah. Well, we had a ton break yesterday. There's some stuff. Honestly, there's a few things we got to talk about. There's a Bobby Clarke interview that I think slipped through the cracks a little bit, which is fucking bananas. We've got a minute and a half clip. That's from the Cam and Strick podcast. There's a John Chayka, former general manager of the Arizona Coyotes, article that he wrote about himself that I think you're going to find really interesting.
He wrote it about himself?
You didn't read it?
No. So this is there was, like you said, there was so much that
Steve,
I just couldn't.
I'm excited to hear you react to it live.
Yes.
I'm excited for you to
Okay, I'm excited too.
Because honestly, and I was talking to somebody, and I don't know if they'd be comfortable with me throwing their name out there, so I won't say it. But I want to give this person credit. But they said it felt like a gigantic subtweet.
The whole article.
The whole article.
I can't wait.
The John Chayka one. Yeah, about the NHL.
Who was he subtweeting?
Well, so that's what I want to break down with you guys, because it seems like there's a message if you read between the lines, but I'm not totally sure who it's meant for. So when we get to it, we can talk about it. I'd like to get your very informed opinions on it because I really have no idea. But I also, Rick Westhead also dropped an enormous story yesterday about the NHL and firing people for reporting things and deleting the evidence. It's really, if it's true, it's an unbelievable report. So I want to talk about that as well. So it's going to be, sorry, Steve, a bit of a heavy lifting show, but I do want to start.
I'll have a nap.
I know the Leaf game was interesting last night, but I want to start with where the timeline starts, which is a 10 a.m. Mountain Time press conference in Edmonton with Ken Holland. And I'm not sure if you guys watched it. Jess, did you see it?
Yeah. I saw the clips that were circulating. I didn't watch the press conference, but I saw what he said.
So I want to shout out Daniel Nugent-Bowman of The Athletic, who just did an amazing job breaking it down. But this tweet, I think, basically sums up what happened. And he said, Ken Holland poured cold water on near-term moves for the Oilers, as in firing the coach or doing some sort of deadline trade. He left the door open for Evander Kane, and otherwise he made it pretty clear Mike Smith and better play from some players will be the solution to turning this team around. And what Ken Holland essentially said, guys, was, they've had a bad 5 weeks. And those 5 weeks have been spread out, 13 games. So it wouldn't have normally lasted this long. But because of the COVID postponements and whatever, this is what's happened. It's fair to say Oilers Nation didn't react well to this press conference.
No, he didn't say anything. So, to me, it's the GM wearing it. Sometimes the coach will take attention off the team to put the heat on him, and that's his way of jumping on the grenade. This is Ken Holland doing it, but he did it by saying nothing. He essentially said nothing. We're going to stay the course. They're probably not as good as the 16-5 they were at the beginning of the season. They're probably not as bad as the 2 regulation wins in 13 games.
2-9-2.
It is horrible.
And one thing before you keep going, Steve, I just want Jesse, can you turn up your mic just a little bit, buddy?
Oh, sure. How's
there.
Oh, yeah.
Much clearer.
Better?
I like that sexy
Turn the
voice.
Jesse up to 11.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Steve. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no. So he didn't say anything, but here's what he's trying to do. He's just trying to buy time.
Okay.
And if you had asked me this trivia question, I couldn't have given you the answer off the top of my head. For the both of you, when is the trade deadline?
That's a good question. I thought it was beginning of April.
Okay, that's Adam's answer.
I'm going to guess March of 10th.
I like Adam's idea of an April Fool's trade deadline day.
Oh, yeah.
There's a smart insider man. Might be a busy bee that day. It is March 21st.
Okay.
So the Oilers and every other team that is not sure who they are have about 10 weeks to discover. They have some time. So, I mean, I am not stoked on Ken Holland as a general manager. He obviously has a past track record of success. His recent track record, like the end of his Detroit tenure and onward, has been abysmal. But I don't think he's stupid. If this continues, changes have to be made, whether it's coaching or personnel or both. I can't imagine a scenario where this continues for the Oilers. And, teams try not to be reactionary and tenured GMs try not to be reactionary. But we've seen plenty of examples. I want to say Vancouver was one of them, where things were going really bad. They hold a press conference to say, no, we're staying the course. And then things continue to be bad for 5 more games. And that's it. Right. That's it. People are fired. All it took was 5 more games. So if the Oilers get back to playing games and I don't know what their upcoming schedule is, I could look it up. But if they don't do so hot over the next half dozen games, I mean, that's 12 points. That's 12 points up for grabs. That's a lot of season. And all of a sudden, March 21st seems a lot closer.
And that's about 2 extra weeks because it's usually the second week of March. So they get a little extra runway. And as a general manager, looking at it from that perspective,
you stop.
Ken
we got to talk about you, by the way.
Ken Holland,
by the way.
If the way he's probably looking at it, because I can get inside his mind in the same role, he's probably looking at it as he has the bullet to play with his head coach. That's probably because if he starts trading from the roster, then he's admitting that it's his fault. And I don't think he wants to do that. So I think the first thing that we see happen if the Oilers keep losing is Tippett being fired in the next month or so.
So it's interesting. now if that's the case, Jesse, he's painted himself into a corner because he said the Oilers have had 7 head coaches in the last 10 years. You can't just keep flipping out coaches.
And I think he does the exact opposite. He actually,
so you're saying in the next, you think that won't affect them? Because
GMs lie to the media all the time, or it's not so much lying as they change their mind because of the circumstances that happen on the ice.
And I don't know when they're supposed to get this back. Really, because so they play Saturday. They have a postponed game against Minnesota, postponed game against Vegas, an actual game against Ottawa on Saturday, a postponed game against Winnipeg, a postponed game against the Chicago Blackhawks, and then after barely playing for 2 weeks or whatever it ends up being, your first game back, Florida. Ooh,
that sucks.
Followed by Calgary, which is always a heated affair, and then they get Vancouver. So who knows? Maybe all those in division games, get the blood pumping. Maybe it's a angry affair that gets you going and galvanizes everyone. Maybe there's a couple pats on the shoulder. Hey, go out and get them. I almost said Luch, but he's not on the team anymore. I don't know. Whoever fights on the Oilers, go out there and fight whoever fights on the Oilers. And, that's what turns their season around. But how do you even, if you're Dave Tippett behind the bench, how do you even come up with a plan?
Well, I think you got to remember, right? The Dave Tippett that you've seen for the last 5 weeks is also the Dave Tippett that went 15-6 with this team to start the season.
Yep.
And I acknowledge that that's probably an unsustainable pace, but maybe there's a happy medium. And maybe the Dave Tippett problem is really a Ken Holland problem for never addressing the goaltending. And, he said it again yesterday. It's going to be Mike Smith and better play. Well, I think, are the Oilers capable of playing better? Sure. But I think for them to be contenders, he's going to ask them to play above their current skill level for a sustained amount of time. And I don't know if that's reasonable. And it's not to denigrate any of the players that are currently there. But if you look at the defense core, and again, I always go back to this with the Oilers, the supporting cast around Connor and Leon, who are the people, frankly, who should be picking up the slack because you're not scoring. So you may as well play some defense, right? Mm-hmm. Fair?
Mm-hmm. Fair.
Are these people, do you look at this roster and go, that's a roster that can even compete for the second round? Do you look at that and go, Stanley Cup contenders?
And can I talk about the storm coming for a certain individual on the Oilers? Because he's a good player and he's popular.
Wayne Gretzky.
But we'll see how long that lasts if the team keeps struggling.
Esa Tikkanen.
Because you cannot divorce a player from his contract.
Bob Asenza.
Darnell Nurse.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you bring up Darnell Nurse. Let me. I want to come back to Darnell, but give me your point on Darnell. What do you think? What are your thoughts there?
I'm not even saying he's bad, but not once through any conversation we've had about the Oilers, any conversation I've had with anybody about the Oilers, has Darnell Nurse come up. That dude. Okay, so he's $5.6 million right now. That's a good deal.
Good deal.
Good deal. Next year, it's $9.25 for the foreseeable future. And that will make him, shockingly, hold on to your butt for this, the Oilers' second highest paid player.
More than Leon.
Leon makes 8.5. So the more this team struggle, and the Oilers don't have a dumb fan base.
No, they're pretty smart.
They know. So they'll know he's not part of the problem, but there are going to be factions of the fan base, factions of the scribes who turn their sights on him because they follow the money. When the team struggles, they follow the money.
So I want to run you through a thread here. And this is from, I'm sure you guys saw this yesterday, from Oilers Pain on Twitter.
I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a great thread. And Oilers Pain, boy, that sums up being an Oiler fan since about 1991. Here's what they said. And it's a bit long, but bear with me. Ken Holland's been an NHL GM for the past 25 years. Let's look at his last decade of work year by year. Time for a quick thread. Shall we start in 2012, gentlemen?
Let's start. Coney.
In the offseason in 2012, signed 37-year-old Todd Bertuzzi to a 2-year, $4 million contract. Bertuzzi played 66 total games and retired. He also signed Jordan Tutu for 3 years, Samuelson for 2 years, 35-plus contract, Carlo Koliakovo for 2 years. Samuelson played 30 more games in the NHL. Tutu and Koliakovo both got bought out of those contracts. 2013, 2 hilariously big bad splashes. Remember this contract? Stephen Weiss from Florida, 5 years, $24.5 million. They bought him out after 2 seasons and 11 total goals.
Oh.
Then signed Jonathan Ericsson to a 6-year, $25.5 million contract, which he finished in the AHL.
Oh, man.
In 2014, he signed Jonas the Monster Gustafsson to a 1-year, $1.85 million deal. Gustafsson went on to play 7 games.
Oof.
He signed Dan Cleary to a 35-plus contract, $1.5 million plus $1 million in performance bonuses. Cleary plays 17 games, his last 17 in the NHL. He traded Patrick Eves, Calle Yarncroke, and a second for 21 games of 34-year-old David Legwand.
Oh.
Now, that to me, yeah. Now, I got to be honest with you, that to me feels like a Babcock move. I just want a guy named David Legwand. He's played for Barry Trotz, and he's defensive, and he's boring. And I can throw him out there for 89 minutes a night. 2015, signed 35-year-old Brad Richards to a $4 million deal. Richards plays his final 68 NHL games on this contract. He gets 28 points for $4 million. Signed declining Mike Green for 3 years and $18 million also that year. And also, and this one's a big one, signed Justin Abdelkader, 7 years, $29.75 million. That was bought out by Steve Yzerman. If you remember, in about 2017, the Leafs were sniffing around and Abdelkader's name was being put out there. Babs apparently really wanted him. Lou almost did it. Thank God that didn't happen. 2015 continued. Signed Dan Cleary again.
How are we 3 years in?
Yeah, I know. Signed Dan Cleary again for a 1-year contract, $950,000. He played 35 AHL games and did not make it to the NHL. He traded the signing rights to Matthias Janmark plus a second-round pick that turned into Rupe Hintz for 11 games of Eric Cole's NHL career.
That's got to be a deadline deal. That's bad.
And it's the last
trade idea.
The last 11 games of Eric Cole's career.
Oh, I'm gonna mark that one down.
2016 went on a hilariously bad spending spree, and I think 16 wasn't that the really bad free agent year?
It was dud. Like every contract was a bad idea.
So Detroit signed up almost $100 million that summer, and all of them are bad. Darren Helm, 5 years, $19.25 million. Franz Nielsen, 6 years, $31.5 million, bought out by Yzerman. Danny DeKeyser, 6 years, $30 million. Moved back from the 16th spot in the draft, which, by the way, was Jacob Chychrun, to 20th for Dennis Cholowski to offload Pavel Datsuk's contract. Just to offload the contract.
Is the bad move the trade or the bad move the pick?
I think the bad move is the pick.
Why not both?
Why not both? I don't know, trade, man. You tell me. 2017, signed Trevor. I remember this one. Signed Trevor Daley, 3 years, $9.5 million. Managed 44 games all year in year 2 and 43 in all of year 3, all at replacement level or lower, then retired. And then he didn't do a whole lot else. 2018, tacked on 2 more years of Mike Green's decline at $5.275 per year. I remember that. I remember thinking, like, why didn't they just trade him at the deadline? Hilariously, Green finishes that contract off with 2 games in Edmonton. You guys remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Paid $3 million for the last 64 games of Thomas Vanek's career in 2018. Sold off some assets to start the rebuild of the roster he destroyed. Oilers Payne is clearly not a fan. He left Detroit a parting gift, a $5.1 million contract for Jimmy Howard to play 27 more games for the franchise, his last in the NHL at an .882 save percentage. And then he comes to Edmonton and picks away at the fringes, but still manages to overpay Chason and Jujhar Khaira. In 2020, he signed Zach Cassian to a 4-year, $12.8 million extension. He also bridged Darnell Nurse to set up the atrocious next contract. I don't know. Do we call that atrocious yet? Do we call that atrocious yet? I don't know.
It's only atrocious if they don't accomplish anything.
Right.
Which they haven't. Like, why do you think the Leafs take so much shit?
Yeah.
Because they haven't done anything.
Yeah. You know? He then signed Kyle Turris at 2 years, $1.65 million, traded a fourth for 2 games of Mike Green, traded 2 seconds for 13 games of Athanasiou. 2021 executives executes the final step of botching Nurse by extending him for 8 years at $74 million. I don't know if I agree with that quite yet. Signed Tyson Barrie for 3 years, $13.5 million. Extended Slater Koekkoek and Devin Shore for 2 years each for some reason. Traded Jones and a pick for Duncan Keith's full cap hit. And traded Ethan Bear for Warren Fogle. And there you have it. The past 10 years of Ken Holland. What a run.
And most of that should make Detroit fans mad.
Yeah. I think they're past mad though. They're like,
oh no, they're fine now. They have like 2 guys who are going to get nominated / win the Calder. I think they're fine.
By the way, is Philip Zadina just never going to make the NHL?
Philip Zadina's got a little bit of I'm trying to think of who is his Leafs comparable, but the Leafs had like so many good prospects for a while that the okay ones were bums.
But he was like a top 5 pick, wasn't he?
He was high. I want to say he was 8th.
He was 6th overall in 2018, and he has played 121 NHL games, but he hasn't stuck in any year. He's played 28, 49, and 35 last 3 years.
Wow. Even this year, 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points in 35 games, minus 13. I mean, geez, he's 22. He's 22 and like a relatively fresh 22. I think he'll be fine.
Now,
maybe not a 6th overall pick, but he'll be fine.
So at Oilers Pain, when they're doing this thread a decade from now, and Ken Holland is still the GM of the Oilers, they may be able to add the next contract to their list in the next couple of days. Because according to former NHL referee Tim Peel, newsbreaker Tim Peel, Evander Kane out of the choices. And here were the choices that I heard. Are you ready? And these are some of the choices. A lot of teams were interested. A lot of teams called. You have both teams in Florida, Colorado, and Edmonton. And he gets the lineup with, this is Evander Kane, gets the lineup with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl every night. Not a hard sell for a hockey player. And if Tim Peel is to be believed, and I believe David Pagnotta backed him up, although Dan Milstein put some water on that fire and said, not yet.
That was a fake David Pagnotta tweet.
No, but there was a real David Pagnotta tweet.
There was
where
a
he was
real one,
it.
but Milstein replied to the one that was when he got booped.
Jesse, Adam and I had this debate last night because he had seen the real one but not the fake one, and I had seen the fake one but not the real one.
Yeah.
Right.
So we didn't know what was true.
I'm like, I swear to God, Steve, I've seen it. I swear to God. And then
Pagnotta reported, basically just confirmed what Peel says, that they're talking to Edmonton. But Milstein went at the guy who was not the real Pagnotta, who was just a fake account, who reported 1 year, $1.5 million deal signed. It was very funny on Twitter.
It was.
Now, like, stylistically and on the ice, it all makes sense. Like, would Kane make the Oilers better? Yep. Would he make the Avs better? Yep. I mean, if that's possible up front, I think they're fine. Tampa, yep. If that's possible up front, I think they're fine, but yep. The Panthers, yep. If that's possible to make them better up front, I don't think you can, but yep. But we're ignoring, like, okay, for the reasons Evander Kane has most recently been in the news for, the Florida teams make a big old bunch of sense. You want to go somewhere where they don't give a fuck about COVID.
That's not the case in terms of your team and the rules of the NHL.
It's not. Yeah, it's the case of the protocols and the league, and that's got nothing to do with the state. You're absolutely right. But like we discussed at the beginning of the season, he was San Jose's best forward last season. So this was the thing. We're like, man, how much of a jerk does a guy have to be his team's best forward and for the entire team to be like, get out of here, except for like one guy or 2 guys. But the Sharks aren't alone. Sorry, the Sharks, the guys on the Sharks who do like him, I mean, executives are lining up to give him millions of dollars. and a spot on their roster, which means kicking off some other guy who's been, he's worked his way up from the minors and he's doing all the right things. And guess what? We're kicking you off for Evander Kane, Ken Holland, do you believe in second chances? All right, follow-up question. What about third, fourth, and fifth?
And maybe the reason
teams still have faith in him.
Well, I was going to say,
they have faith in his hockey DB page.
Yeah. So here's I'm with you, Jesse. So I was looking at this yesterday, and I totally get a reclamation project. You got an insanely talented hockey player who fights and scores and is big, but I wanted to be kind of honest here because obviously, let's run through some of the events, just some of them. There's a major bankruptcy case right now involving gambling debts borrowed against his former contract that's now been terminated that are unpaid. There were complaints inside the San Jose dressing room begging Doug Wilson not to bring this guy back, how he's not a team player and he's not even somebody that's liked. And then there is, this isn't even the first time we've heard this either. Every team, I think with maybe the exception of Buffalo, has had some variation on this story. There was the back on tracksuit. Remember that from Winnipeg?
Winnipeg, yeah. Dustin Byfuglien threw his tracksuit in the shower.
Yeah, and then of course there was the accusations made by his I don't want to say his wife, his girlfriend, who is the mother of his child, earlier this summer. Not just about gambling, but also about potential domestic abuse. And then he comes back and he fakes his COVID shots before the season even starts. And then you're talking about a material breach of contract when he flies to Vancouver while in COVID protocol in the NHL, not telling the team. And then after all that happens, it's been less than a week and 20 GMs are calling.
Well, and he allegedly showed up a week late.
Mm-hmm. Is that what it was too? In the
AHL? So there's a report back on the 31st and he showed up on Jan 6th.
So the contract breach is two parts. Mm-hmm. It's he violated COVID protocol by being positive and flying to Vancouver without medical clearance. And then he supposedly showed up. He was due back December 31st and showed up January 6th or something like that. So they terminated his contract. I don't think the Sharks are going to get off scot-free.
No, they're gonna have to pay.
I'd be very surprised. Sometimes the best conversations on 32 Thoughts are the ones where they don't know the answer. And I was listening to that today as I was dropping my son off. And so Kane comes to an agreement with the team. Mm-hmm. But an arbitrator finds that his contract was wrongfully terminated and finds him 100% in the right. What team does he play for? How does that work?
I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're already past that point. I think they know that.
I would be surprised if he ever showed up to the Sharks again.
No, it's a structured settlement. That's what'll happen. There's no way.
So for Kane's purposes, it'll be financial compensation, but should the Sharks not be penalized against the cap for canceling a contract they weren't allowed to?
I think this is going to be a Mike Richards thing.
That's exactly what I said on the last episode when you weren't there. That's exactly what I said. They're going to pull some number out of a fortune cookie, out of a Kinder Surprise, out of their ass. They're just going to find some number. Is this fair? Sure. And slam it down on the table, and it'll be on the Sharks cap for 8 years.
Yeah, but it'll be small.
2.
Maybe not even that.
Maybe. What was Mike Richards? Mike Richards was what a sham that was.
The one thing I also want to add is that when Evander went to San Jose, they thought, hey, we can fix this guy. Right? Joe Thornton picked him at the airport. We got Doug Wilson talking about how they have a great leadership group, and they had Vlasic and Burns and Pavelski and Marleau and all the other people. Was Marleau even there? Maybe Marleau wasn't there. Maybe it was the lead.
I think he was. One. I don't know.
And the leaders will take care of it. But what happened is 3 of the leaders left, Thornton, Pavelski, and Marleau. You still have some strong personalities in there with Carlson, Vlasic, obviously, and Brent Burns. But here's the thing. Were they able to keep whatever was going on track? No, they weren't. Well, and it's so you've seen this how many times? And Ken Holland is already going to sign a guy up to a team with no receipts that this guy's even trying to get better. Like nothing, unless there's something I don't know. And where are the receipts here?
Reclamation project. Reclaiming what? He was nearly a point a game player last season. So you're going to be, who are you hooking him up with exactly? You know, and how do you improve a player? So let's just throw it all on the table. You're getting Evander Kane because you think he gives you a better chance of winning the Stanley Cup. Well, in order to give you a chance at winning the Stanley Cup, he needs to be on your roster before March 21st, right? Because that's the trade deadline. Can you fix a person in 2 months? You know, it's a reclamation project, isn't it?
I don't think these GMs are trying to fix a person. I think they're trying to win hockey games. And
exactly.
They don't really care what happens.
No, so whoever signs him, they're going to use a lot of flowery language and a bunch of carefully thought out words. And I want you to know, no matter what team it is, no matter who says it, it's all bullshit. All of it. Every word. Carefully crafted, clearly manipulative bullshit. They're just trying to win. They don't give a fuck about anything else.
Mm-hmm. Well,
dark.
Yeah, a bit. I just
whatever. It's true.
I want people to get better. Listen, in the summertime, I was like, listen, this guy's got an addiction. We got to treat it like an addiction.
You're the only guy saying that.
But and we do. But that doesn't mean he needs to play right now. Clearly, based on his actions since then, shit's not all right. The guy is not making well-informed, good decisions. He's not. You
got a fake vaccine passport.
100%.
Who thinks to do that?
No.
Is it okay? Answer. I don't know what the answer is, but is the answer a smart person? God, I miss being in studio with you guys.
Well, I'm just listening. I think at the end of the day here, it's just odd that, you know, an Oilers dressing room that's already sort of stressed, you can see it on McDavid's face that they're going, this is the guy. And listen, we're assuming that Tim Peel is right here. I don't think Tim's ever broken a signing before, so we'll see. But even if it is Tampa, even if it is Florida, even if it is Colorado, you guys, what fucking galaxy are you living in that you think that you can just fix a guy because you have a bunch of other good people?
No, it's all bullshit.
And it is. Listen, he has got to want to change and get better on his own. That's on him. That's his responsibility. You keep signing him up for these contracts. He's got no reason to change. Why would he change? Why would he change a single thing? You know, I get cut from my contract and 60% of the NHL wants me. Are you kidding? It's crazy. Anyway, my opinion on it.
If he signs one more deal, and then he screws it up, let's say in some imaginary scenario, he does something awful and they have to cut him. Does he get another chance next year?
Yes.
Yes, because Marc Bergevin is in LA now. Figure that one out for me.
You know what? There are plenty of valid reasons you're right to have a bone to pick with Marc Bergevin, but let's call it what it is. It sounds like more than half the league is interested
100%
in this guy. So this isn't a Bergevin problem. It's a dudes don't give a fuck problem. They don't care.
I have more respect for Tyler Bertuzzi saying, I'm not fucking getting it. At least he shows up and he says, I'm not getting it.
At least he didn't lie.
Yeah.
Listen, at least you know. You're able to prepare.
If that's your opinion and you don't want to do it, fine. You have to deal with the league protocols. You can't play in Canada. All of those things, fine. Mm-hmm. But to show up with a fucking flimsy piece of paper and to get caught, it's so fucking lame, man.
I just want to
lame. It's loser material.
Do you want to see it? The card?
Yeah, hell yeah.
I want to see the card.
Me too.
Like
I want a QR code. It'd be great.
That meme that says I am 21. Like I want to see the card. But yeah, like with a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi, hey, here's some information. And you go, oh, well, thank you for that information. Now I can plan with the information that you gave me. Yeah. But when someone lies to you, I don't know if it's criminal, but if someone lies to you
Mm-hmm.
You cannot plan for the lie. You endanger people with the lie. That is why he was suspended in the first place. A month goes by, and he does something stupid again. But you know what? He did have 8 points in 5 AHL games during that month, so it might work for us.
He can deliver a Nucky sandwich.
He sure can. You know, I don't know. It might work for us.
I don't know. I mean, listen, if we're talking pure skill, Evander Kane with Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid's going to be a hell of a line.
This is I don't know why we can't act shocked about a double standard that has existed since the dawn of time in sports. If you do bad things, you are held accountable if you suck. If a guy does something bad and gets kicked out of the league, folks, it's not because he did something bad. It's because he sucks.
Yeah.
Tony DeAngelo doesn't suck enough. Contract. Evander Kane doesn't suck enough. Contract. All kinds of dudes have done shitty things, and people use frilly language, and guess what? Contract.
So
sometimes a player does a shitty thing and says, "Don't draft me." Guess what? Drafted. He wasn't projected to go in the 7th round, was he? He was too good to be listened to. He's so good they ignored him. This is the double standard that's existed since the dawn of time. You know, we don't hear about Mitchell Miller very much anymore.
He's playing, though, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's playing somewhere, but we don't hear much about it. It's not like a frequently talked about subject. He sucks just enough to be ignored, but he might develop into good enough to get a contract. But we're not talking about a first rounder here. We're talking about a guy who was picked in the 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give him some accountability.
Yeah.
Fourth rounders get accountability. Just get out of here. First rounders.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe just a sprinkle of accountability. Just a, I don't know. I don't know. How many 4th overall picks do you know?
Well,
if you're kicked out of the league for doing something bad, it's because you stink.
Yeah, that's your biggest crime.
Your biggest crime is that you stink. The second biggest thing is that you did a bad thing.
I was going to tweet something to this effect last night, and Steve said, just save it for the show. And essentially it's this. Evander Kane can find a job in less than a week after his history, after the things that have happened, without receipts. Remember, I'm all for a comeback story. I am all for recovery. I am all for people turning their lives around. But I mean, I don't think there's any more blatant proof that hasn't happened here. So, like I said, he comes back and gets a contract likely within a week of his termination because of his own doing. But we can't find managerial jobs for women or people of color. Can't find them. We can't find good spots for people. It's really tough in the NHL. I'm not sure the talent's there. I'm fucking shocked. Well, like it's so weird that a guy who quite literally, if he wasn't good at hockey, you'd be like, the only reason you're wasting your time with this guy is because he can score 20 more goals than the next guy. Really? And you can't, and I know that seems like a bit of a false equivalency, but you understand where I'm going with this, right? They talk about how they can't do this and they can't do that. Well, it's, we got to make places for women, but we're not going to do it. Not at the expense of my job. You know what I mean? You can do that. You can build affordable housing as long as it's not down the street from me. It's that sort of mentality. And then this guy who's good at hockey and would deserve a chance to come back if he went and did the work, gets a job in less than a week. I just think that's fucked, man. I do. And I listen.
Adam, you ever scored 25 goals in the NHL?
Never, man.
Well,
never.
I
did it in house league one time.
That was pretty good.
That's pretty good. I mean,
I had 1 year where I just went Matt Bolesky on the league and I scored 37 goals.
Wow. Was your team good too?
Yeah, we were a good team. We were a really good
championship?
team. Yeah. We went berserk. It was
I'm
great.
just picturing a young Steve Birch sitting in the stands. He's not going to shoot 50% forever. And he was right, though. He was right. Don't you laugh. He was right.
It was back down to like 15 goals the next season. You have to understand that we played like 25 games a season, so 37 goals was an accomplishment.
Ian Tulloch, unsustainable. Scott Wheeler, ride the wave, West Hill Golden.
Anyway, long story short with Evander Kane, it's just, I mean, listen, he could, you know what? Maybe he goes and he goes and signs with the Oilers. They win the cup, and a bunch of people tweet me a picture of him holding the cup. It still won't change my opinion. Still won't change my opinion.
You can always it's like, oh, a shitty person's holding the cup. Oh, cool. We've been here before.
Yeah.
The NHL.
Yeah. He's not even special in that regard. I've said it before. I'll say it again. It's not the Hockey Hall of Great Guys.
No.
Hey, cheers to 2022. May hairy balls be forgot and never brought to mind with Manscaped. Does that work? No, it didn't work. All right. Well, did you see the ball drop? That's Steve's. Did you like that better?
I thought it was.
Okay, listen, all I'm saying is with our exclusive offer, you go to manscaped.com, use the promo code DANGLE. Get it? Because it's for your balls, and you get 20% off and free shipping. I already told you about the Performance Package 4.0, where you're going to find that signature lawnmower 4.0, the electric trimmer designed to trim hair on loose skin. The advanced skin-safe technology reduces cuts and nicks on your delicate areas. It also comes equipped with a 4,000K LED light. That's a lot of TVs. And that will make sure that you reach the promised land and not other things. And you don't want to cut the wrong things down there. You know what I'm saying? So here's the deal. For the new year, let's keep those balls shiny and clean with Manscaped. Be sure to travel to manscaped.com for our exclusive offer. 20% off and free shipping with the code DANGLE. And cheers to your balls in 2022.
Hey, what is HelloFresh? With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip steps to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make cooking easy, fun, and affordable. It's why it's North America's #1 meal kit. Now, it's a new year, and it's a great time to focus on what's important to you, whether it's saving money by ordering less takeout, learning to cook, or prioritizing your wellness. HelloFresh is here to help you with endless options to make cooking at home simple and enjoyable. HelloFresh delivers pre-portioned ingredients to your door. Like I said, farm fresh produce, and it's easy to make. I'm terrible at cooking. You can get it done in 30 minutes or less, and they actually have some quick meals that are 20 minutes or less, low prep, easy cleanup, and the fastest route to getting food on the table. It's awesome, and you should definitely check it out. So here's what I want you to do. To try it out, go to HelloFresh.com/SDP16 and use the code SDP16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gift cards. So again, HelloFresh.com/SDP16, use the code SDP16, up to 16 free meals and 3 gift cards. And of course, you want to try it. It's North America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh. Now, I want to ask you if you've heard this. Jesse, I sent you the clip of Cam and Strick. I don't know if you saw that come up. Have you not heard the clip, Steve?
Oh, no, I've heard the clip. It's I have a lot of thoughts, and like you, I was like, why isn't everyone freaking out about this? Yeah. I think Flyers Twitter was, and to another extent, there was a little bit of Blues Twitter and a little bit of Penguins Twitter, because Ron Hextall, who is the focus of this Bob Clarke clip, is the GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Can I play?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
But right away, he shut his door. He locked the doors. He was the boss, and nobody else was part of it.
He's talking about Ron Hextall.
We end up drafting. We get the second pick in the draft, and we end up drafting Nolan Patrick. None of our scouts wanted Nolan Patrick. It wasn't. I mean, I don't know where Patrick should have gone after his performances in Brandon. He's a pretty good player, but he certainly. They wanted Makar. Of course, he went next. No, he's a superstar, and Patrick hasn't played number, but Hextall made that choice himself. And there were other choices that were made in our drafts that we're paying for. You know, we've got 2 or 3 first-round picks that are never going to play.
Oof.
And that's why we're struggling. Hexie made some huge mistakes, and
Hey, he gave the Blues Braden Shen too, So I mean, so
that was just as bad.
You
Nobody knew it. Hexie made that on his own. All our scouts, it was at the draft. Our scouts were so mad at Hexie for doing that. We also had a chance to get O'Reilly from Buffalo, but we didn't. Obviously, that was the manager's decision, but it was another one that the scouts weren't consulted on.
So in that clip, Bobby Clarke, legendary GM player of the Philadelphia Flyers, still in management there, calls out Ron Hextall for essentially basically going rogue, ignoring everybody and going, I'm going to do this my way. And in that, he picks Nolan Patrick over Cale Makar. Nolan Patrick was getting a lot of attention going into that year, but I remember him sort of starting to fall down the draft rankings, right? I remember that was starting to happen towards the draft.
Sort of, but he was gonna go top 5.
Sure. 100%.
So it's a bit revisionist, but teams think differently at the draft.
I remember even listening to the radio at that point, and they were like, well, Nolan Patrick probably won't play hockey in the NHL next year. And I remember, weren't they coming off like a couple of years straight where it was like, McDavid, Eichel, Matthews, Laine, like there was some amazing, and then it was like Patrick and who went first overall that year?
Nico Hischier, right? And it was sort of like don't expect them to be Matthews, McDavid, Eichel level. Well, here's the top 5 from that draft: Nico Hischier, Nolan Patrick, Miro Heiskanen, Cale Makar, Elias Pettersson.
Wow.
Holy jumping shit. That's a really good top 5, and you could make an argument it's in reverse order.
Yeah, you could.
Not quite, but you know what I mean? Especially not the way Petey's been playing recently. Holy
so
smokes.
here's what's shocking to me. By the way, Cale Makar, I believe, with 15 goals in his last 23 games.
The best season from any defenseman.
Since Mike Green offensively?
Probably Mike Green. Like we're talking about a better season probably than like any Erik Karlsson ever even put up, which is bananas.
Whoa. Okay, so then he goes on to talk about the Braden Shen trade. Steve, what do you remember about the Braden Shen trade to the Blues?
The Braden Shen trade to the Blues. I'd have to look it up. Let me look it up real quick.
I will look it up for you.
Because here's the thing. He's rattling off mistakes that Ron Hextall made. Now, unless I misheard,
have it for you, by the way.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
What do you got?
The St. Louis Blues got Braden Shen. The Flyers got Yuri Laterra, a 2017 first pick, and a 2018 conditional. And it's June 23rd, so that looks like a draft day trade.
Okay, so they get it was a 2017 first that they got. So, I mean, geez, that's Morgan Frost with the other pick, if I'm not mistaken. Who they were able to get, and I don't know who they ended up getting in 2018.
Yeah, Yuri
Laterra first.
Played.
Laterra was not good,
and is now in the KHL with Spartak.
I'm surprised he's. Oh wow, yeah, he's putting up numbers too. Man, he was good in the KHL, came to the NHL, and went right back and was fine. Actually, he did have the one pretty good season in the NHL, but man, I just remember. He was a fancy stat nightmare and everything. But if I'm not mistaken, Bobby Clarke says in that clip, well, Makar goes next. No, he didn't.
He went fourth, didn't he?
He went fourth. Heiskanen went third. You could argue if you're a Flyers fan, well, that doesn't make me feel much better. We could have Heiskanen instead of Nolan Patrick. Okay, fine. The other part of that revisionist history is Nolan Patrick suffered a traumatic brain injury. The other part of that is this is Bobby Clarke throwing Ron Hextall under the bus. What about poor Nolan Patrick? Like, here's where I'm caught off guard. As CJ said on the CJ show, oh God, what was the context? I think it was the Dave Tippett, Mikko Koskinen thing. He said, I love honesty. So you don't want to criticize Dave Tippett too much because you want, the people who you interview to be honest. I want Bobby Clarke to be honest when he's ask questions, but this was like a wrestling style shoot.
But that's how Bobby Clarke talks. That's how he is.
Yeah, but let's also contextualize this with it's Bobby Clarke. So he's talking about not listening to scouts at the draft, and he remembers the draft so well that A, in his answer in this clip, he gets it wrong, and B, aren't you the guy who forgot who you were gonna draft the year the Flyers selected Claude Giroux? Everyone look that clip up. You haven't seen that clip? Bobby Clarke goes on stage at the draft and he goes, the Philadelphia Flyers select. I forget.
Well, because he was listening to his scouts.
I forget.
And he said, what name did you guys tell me?
Who is it? It's Claude Giroux. So, okay, well, then we have one GM who won't listen to his scouts and another GM who's just like, who are we picking? It doesn't exactly make you look like a brain surgeon there, Bobby. I love honesty, and I love that he's giving this answer. I wish more people were like that, but it stands out in hockey as a total motherfucking. Yeah. And this like code and everything stays in the dressing room and we don't air our dirty laundry. That's all bullshit too, because that only applies to guys we like. And Bobby Clarke does not like Ron Hextall. But from what I gathered, I didn't know there was that big a beef going on there. But Bobby Clarke doesn't like him. So the code doesn't apply to him. The sanctity of the locker room, or I guess the boardroom, does not apply to Ron Hextall because fuck him. I don't like him. And he works for the competition now over in Pittsburgh. God, wouldn't you love Brian Burke's take on this shit?
Yeah.
Oh,
I would. I mean, God. Brian Burke's working directly with Ron Hextall. I'd love to know what he thinks.
He absolutely. Oh, yeah. And I'm sure Brian Burke's job over the past 24 hours has just been to stand with his hands planted on the hood of Ron Hextall's car, just preventing him from driving to wherever Bobby Clarke is and just beating the piss out of him because he's Ron Hextall. The number one team I want to see a reality show for in terms of management, like a all or nothing style. You're thinking about all the teams and the personality in the locker room. Yeah. We don't ever learn anything from that shit. The Leafs, what we saw with Dubas and Keefe, they became the stars of the show. And we got to see a trade call and we got to see Keefe tell his goalie coach to fuck off. We got to see all that great shit. You're telling me you don't want to see that with Brian Burke and Ron Hextall? Absolutely. That is number 1, 2, and 3. The second team can be number 4. I want to see that 1,000 times. And I would love to. How don't the Penguins react to this clip?
What, you mean on the ice?
No. Like someone, if there is a hockey media god, someone has already put in interview requests to the Pittsburgh Penguins for Ron Hextall to get his reaction to what Bobby Clarke said. Mm-hmm. Now, he can deny it. And, I mean, he probably wants to on account of Pittsburgh is shit hot right now. Like, literally the hottest team in the league. And they got Malkin back. How unfair.
I know.
It's so unfair.
I know.
But it's staggering to see how many people Bobby Clarke could throw under the bus in one clip. And the other thing I didn't like is, well, we had a chance to get Ryan O'Reilly. For what?
Right.
For what? Oh, yeah, we could have got Ryan O'Reilly for Giroux, Provorov, Frost, Patrick, Carter Hart. Like, that doesn't mean anything. Oh, yeah, we had a chance to get Morgan to Ryan O'Reilly. I mean,
a follow-up question.
It could have been a great deal.
Yeah,
could have been a great deal, but like that doesn't mean anything.
Yep. Yeah,
it's just an attack. It stands
I think it makes the Pittsburgh-Philly game, whenever the next one happens, very, very interesting.
My God.
And the reason I say that is that, like, that all the players know this and heard this. Oh, yeah. And the thing is, Pittsburgh's really good and Philly sucks. And so like, here's the one thing about Ron Hextall, even though people can point the finger at him and be like, you're the reason we suck, is that he's still on the winning side right now. And so he gets to walk into Philly and go, fuck you guys. I'm going to the playoffs. What are you doing? And I would be curious to get his side, but I very much doubt, because they're so good, that we're ever going to hear.
Listen, you don't have to get an answer, but you have to. If you're a member of the Pittsburgh media, you have to ask the question. You're not doing your job if you don't. I'll be very upset. I'll be very upset with you. So the full trade, by the way. So Yori Laterra, the 2017 first, and a 2018 conditional first. So it's Yori Laterra, Morgan Frost, and Joel Farabee. I figured that out. So hooray. Like, what does that have to... Why did he bring that up? It's not even terrible. I don't understand. Listen, this is all just a preamble to everyone. We just want to see these two old men fist fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Come on.
Kind of like those two CFL guys who, like, 60 years later started beating each other with the cane at the CFL Hall of Fame event. Have you seen that?
That's a crazy clip. Okay, yeah.
And they're like 86.
Yeah, we gotta. So a lot of our American and European listeners won't know.
I'll set this up. So these guys, and I don't even know what teams they played for. Probably the Rough Riders and the Rough Riders, because there were two teams called the Rough Riders. One was one word, one was two word at one point. And they're at a Hall of Fame event, and these guys are both old. And when I'm talking old, I'm talking like not very mobile old anymore.
So I have it here. They're 73 years old each. It is Joe Kapp, former BC Lions quarterback, and
Minnesota Vikings.
And Vikings quarterback, yeah. And Angelo Musca, former Hamilton Tiger Cats defensive tackle.
There you go.
Professional wrestler.
And I don't even know what they fought over originally years ago. They just hate each other. And so one of them goes up and hits the other one in the head with his cane. And
it's a truly surreal clip.
It's been like 5 decades since they've seen each other. And you just...
Oh my God.
Jesse, are you playing the clip? Are you playing?
I've never seen this before.
You've never seen that?
No, I've never seen this. This is unbelievable.
It's amazing. It's a crazy clip. Just goes to show you some grudges. They die hard.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and you can hear everyone in the room, like, they're all completely flabbergasted at what's going on.
Of course.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's a surreal clip. Sorry. You got to pause the show and watch that right now.
just mad, just upset.
Oh man.
Anyway, moving on from that, the KHL has announced some postponements as well. And this is interesting because depending upon your viewpoints on how things have been handled, COVID was handled a little bit like we're super strict here in Canada. Russia hasn't exactly been strict about COVID in the same sense. Obviously, there's a huge push to get vaccinated and that sort of thing, but there's just been a different approach, obviously. And the league has basically postponed a bunch of games. The season's going to go about later. And Alexei Morozov, who's the KHL president, said, I want to reiterate our main goal in the pandemic is the health of our players and fans. Nothing has changed. Situation developing rapidly. 60 people in the league got sick in 24 hours, and several clubs showed symptoms of the disease. KHL will hold games over the next 3 match days with participation of clubs. There will be no, assuming there's no worsening of the situation, and they're going to make up a lot of their games over the Olympic break, just like the NHL. So I just thought, man, even if the KHL is like this, then it's pretty big.
The quote with the numbers from the article is, as of January 12th, there were 171 positive PCR tests in the league's teams, 124 of them regarding players. This translates to an increase of 60 cases in just one day, like you said, including 27 players. Who's gonna play at the Olympics?
I don't know. What's the league below the KHL, Steve?
VHL.
Maybe players from there?
I don't know. Well, because if this is, it's not like a league problem necessarily. It's a people are getting ill in that country problem or testing positive problem. So no, it's just something that occurred to me. And I mean, it's not the most important issue, but if KHL players are not allowed to go to the Olympics, or even some of them, like a chunk of them, who the hell is going to play at this tournament?
One thing that kind of relates to that I saw yesterday about NHL players is that once you test positive and you go out into COVID protocols, you don't have to be tested again for 3 months.
90 days.
That 3 months, right? That's an advantage for a lot of teams if you timed your COVID perfectly and you're just cool for the rest of the season and the playoffs and you don't have to get tested and there's no risk of you going out. Like I thought about that just from like an advantage standpoint versus the other teams.
That was something CJ said about the Leafs because they basically just all got it at once.
Right.
So like 75% of the team, like over half of the team is just fine for 90 days. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You're good. Outside of like a handful of guys, everyone was in protocol. When what's been hurting the Oilers is their cases are just trickling.
Yeah.
Right.
So ideally, like if you get COVID in March, you're good through the playoffs.
Oof. That's so fucking crazy.
There's a really terrible South Park episode right here.
Oh yeah.
The Lightning. Watch the Lightning.
No, isn't this
This is Stan putting his testicles in the microwave to get.
Are you
free
sure?
weight.
Or is it the
no,
chicken
that's
pox?
not the episode. Yeah, it's the chicken pox episode.
No. I like that one better. The wheelbarrow.
Tell mom it's okay. Randy, your balls. I know, smoking weed right in front of a cup. No,
yeah. So it's that part of it, I guess, sort of makes sense too. Because if you get COVID, you can test positive for like, I think 90 days afterwards, can't you? It's like so there's like a whole bunch of issues with the testing that's probably the reason that rule exists. And also I think
with your Olympics
antibodies, I think medically they at least have confirmed that you're pretty safe after you get it for a while, assuming that there's no major different variant.
cool.
So I wonder with your Olympics question, Steve, if the guys test positive and then they try and go to the Olympics, what is the ruling on that? I don't know.
No idea, man. Well, and like, you know, we talked about NHL players potentially testing positive in Beijing and then having to stay there for 3 to 5 weeks. Ooh. And, they're going to be losing so much money. Well, this is rich people losing money. We're starting to get to the point where there's going to be people going who are not particularly rich and they're going to be stuck and not going to get paid the whole time. And what the hell are they going to do? It's not something that needs to be worried about. It kind of does. The Olympics start in 3 weeks?
Yeah.
This is a big deal. This is a bigger deal than I think people understand that the KHL has postponed. Now, maybe the KHL postponing right now is what saves the Olympics, at least on the men's side. The women's team, they're having a great time. They announced the roster for Team Canada yesterday.
That announcement was so cool, by the way, with the young girls doing that. Did you see the video? Oh, it was awesome. Yeah. Love that.
But the men's side, I have no idea who's playing. No clue. It'll be fun when that gets announced, though. I actually think this will be a fun Olympics to watch, just to see other Canada, other very good hockey players. Yeah, I like watching hockey, man. Like people, oh man, it's garbage hockey. Like, what are you talking about? If the game's close.
Honestly, that's what people, when people tell me that the MLS is garbage, and I understand that it's not Premiership, and I understand that it's not FA Cup, and I understand that it's not Champions League or whatever. But like soccer is, especially in person, such an amazing game to watch. And to me, these guys are playing soccer at such a high fucking level that I notice, I guess, little things here and there, maybe kinda. But to say that the MLS is just bullshit, looks like shit. I'm like, you just kind of look like an asshole. That's like people saying, remember when Ben Scrivens was on our show and he was like, oh, you suck, you play in the AHL. And he's like, dude, that's a league below the NHL. That puts you in the top 2,000 players on earth.
Yeah.
And he was right. It's anyway.
What do you watch the World Juniors for? The back checking?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. No, for sure. I love the structure of those teenagers and how they really kill a play.
I'm telling you, go with my idea, NHL. 3-on-3 overtime, ban coaches. They have to go to the locker room.
Okay, so this is from Rick Westhead, a bit more serious. 2 former NHL league officials, off-ice officials, alleged in a newly filed lawsuit that they were fired for reporting a colleague who used racist and sexually charged language for years while working for the league. Now, these 2 guys, one of them was hired. Both were fired February 27th, 2020, right before the first wave of the pandemic. One of them had worked for the NHL since 1998, the other since 2005. They were off-ice officials in Tampa, and they did all the Tampa games. And they said that a colleague named Pat DiLorenzo Jr. repeatedly used racist language at work, including but not limited to African-American players and an African-American veteran who sings the national anthem for the Tampa Bay games at Amalie. They reported it to somebody named Ron Brace, who is the NHL's former crew chief in Tampa. And they said he failed to take any action for several years. And the lawsuit says the plaintiffs reported his behavior, DiLorenzo, that is, in November and December of 2019. Anyway, long story short, it says that they were fired for this. And here's the other thing. And Katie Strang, so this is a Rick Westhead report. Katie Strang jumps on that. And she said, according to the complaint, the NHL, via a league attorney, instructed that the video recordings of this language be destroyed. One of the complainant's central claims is that the plaintiffs felt confident they could share these concerns and be protected by the league's whistleblower/anti-retaliatory policies in doing so. Instead, they felt targeted for termination after reporting. Katie says, this is interesting in the broader context because the whistleblower protections are also touted as a fundamental component of the NHL's anonymous hotline, which is designed to, quote, receive disclosures of unethical behavior and misconduct. And here's the, she goes on to, here's the guidance and that sort of thing on it. At the end of the day, these guys feel like we reported this and then we got fired. They also knew that a previous female off-ice official from another city was terminated by the NHL shortly after reporting a sexual harassment at work. That's what they say in this lawsuit. So they are looking for their jobs back. They're looking to be rehired, and they're looking to seek damages as well.
Wow. That's not often you hear they want their job back after hearing all that.
That might just be a law thing. I'm not really, maybe they come to a structured settlement there. You should ask a lawyer. I think you would have to place it in a way that's like, they want their jobs back, but really you'd come to a settlement outside of court and they don't get their jobs back, but they get more money or something like that. But if it's true, where do we go from here?
It's another thing, man. It's another thing. And it's part of the reason why whenever the NHL says anything, we roll our eyes. Hockey is for everyone. Yeah. Shut up. Like, none of us, the NHL, the National Hockey League as a league, has not earned the trust of its fans. And it hasn't earned the trust of its prospective fans. And whenever something comes up, whatever the scandal may be, and the NHL claims to not have known, this is why everyone's skeptical. Mm-hmm. With the Blackhawks scandal that emerged this summer, they knew for quite some time. They didn't know from the moment that the Blackhawks knew. We do know that. Or do we? I mean, we can't prove it. In this lawsuit, who ordered who to destroy what?
So the NHL apparently, and I'll read this again. The NHL via a league attorney instructed that the video recordings of this language be destroyed. And I guess, according to the lawsuit, I'm just looking through it right now just to make sure I get it right. The lawsuit says both plaintiffs were worried that they might be fired for reporting the incidents. Because they said they knew of another female who had been fired for reporting sexual harassment. Both said they were promised that they would be protected under the NHL whistleblower policy. The league was provided with 6 recordings of DiLorenzo's racially discriminatory behavior, and then the league, via an attorney, destroyed the videos.
The NHL seems like truly an awful place, like in terms of its management down. just the people who run it. It seems like every old ways society trope that you could throw out there about the old boys club. It seems like that's the way the NHL has been run and is currently still run by the old guard. And it doesn't I don't like the NHL as an organization at all. It's not a league you want to root for. You like the teams and the guys on the ice and the players, but everything surrounding it's kind of just gross and disgusting.
Every time I see Gary Bettman on TV, I'm like, ugh.
It's not run.
What now?
It's not run like a professional league.
I shouldn't. Whenever the commissioner comes out, it shouldn't be like, ugh, what do you want?
I think people are like that with Goodell, aren't they? NFL fan. They'll like that. Yeah.
I guess that's true, but at least they seem to like the NFL.
Right.
And fans like the NBA and MLB. I know has its issues, but it's not about. A lot of people, dumbasses, will look at something like that and the criticism of it and go, well, if you hate hockey so much, just stop watching.
You don't hate hockey.
The only reason I still watch is because I like hockey. The league fucking sucks. And I don't understand what you don't understand. Did you read it? Did you comprehend it? It's one thing to read something. It's another thing to understand what you read. It's just another thing. It's another thing. Here's something for the comment section or for the Discord. What would it take for you to trust the National Hockey League? What would it take for you to take the National Hockey League at its word? What would it take for you to feel welcome by the National Hockey League?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we didn't, Jesse, on the last show, did we even talk about the NHL not even really being part of the Hockey Diversity Alliance video that they put out?
We did mention it, yeah.
We did?
They were asked to be a part of it, and they didn't give approvals for NHL jerseys or any NHL logos to be allowed in the commercial. Lots of NHL players were pressured to not be a part of the HDA.
Oh, that's right. We did talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an awful place.
And the first thing I noticed about it, and maybe this is a ridiculous thing to notice and a petty thing, and maybe there's nothing actually there. But when they did retweet it, the first party they mentioned was Budweiser.
Oh my God.
They were like, we want to thank Budweiser for this video.
Wow.
Which, I know Budweiser was involved, and, we did talk about that, and we gave them their props. I was amazed at, what was included in it, in the video. I've worked with some pretty big brands, and it's pulling teeth to get them to step out of their comfort zone. And
I was shocked.
Pretty uncomfortable video.
I was shocked that Sportsnet allowed Akeem Aliou to come on and bash the NHL like that. I really was. Mm-hmm. And maybe not bash is the wrong word. Tell the truth about the NHL like that. I was shocked. Sportsnet's a rights holder. They have a very close relationship with the NHL. I know that Sportsnet management heard from Gary Bettman that next day. I just know it. Had to have. Absolutely.
And were they wrong?
No.
Or was he wrong?
I think Sportsnet made the right call. I think that's the right thing to do. I don't know if you guys mentioned it, and I apologize. I spilled my drink off camera here, and I want to make sure it didn't.
I was wondering what the hell you were doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But did you mention that the NHL also didn't allow any of its players to wear the HCA jerseys?
Yeah,
they were barred from that.
Yeah, we said something along those lines. I can't even find the retweet. I don't even know if it was on the NHL's actual account that they retweeted it. That might have been.
It was.
Was it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's still there, but it was.
It must have been a few days ago then.
Yeah, it was. It was on Saturday.
Oh, okay. Well, now I'm scrolling.
So, but you heard what I said, Steve, right?
Yes.
The NHL did not allow players just to wear a Hockey Diversity Alliance jersey. Wouldn't allow it. Can't happen. You think about that. That's not reasonable. That's control for control's sake. That's autocratic behavior. That's the kind of thing. You asked me what would make me trust. You need a change in leadership. And you need a leadership group that can change personnel more than once every 30 years.
No, but Bettman's not going anywhere, he said.
I mean, man, if the Kyle Beach thing didn't bring him down, I don't know what would.
Yeah.
Unless, and Steve, maybe this goes back to our point about Evander Kane, unless, the only thing that could get him fired is being bad at his job for the owners.
Well, that's the thing, right? They love him. And
love him. I don't think it's fair anymore. From what I've heard, I don't think it's fair anymore to say that every owner loves Gary Bettman. I'm not even sure that it's fair to say that 60% of the owners love him.
Jeremy Jacobs
loves him.
Loves Gary Bettman. And
there is a top tier of ownership. Just because you own in the NHL doesn't mean that you're listened to.
Hockey really is run by one Mr. Burns doppelganger. And that's it. Put him next to Mr. Burns.
So anyway, this is a story that we're obviously Rick's got more coming.
Good.
And we'll see. We'll find out what the NHL says, and we'll find out if it's proven. See where it goes. Or it could be a situation where it's settled outside of court. We never hear of it again, which also happens. But it's funny. Every little stone you unturn, it goes, ooh, I don't like that. Oh, I don't like that. You just wonder about the stones that have yet to be unturned, right?
Yeah, something as simple as the whistleblower line not protecting people who are whistleblowing is just, that in itself is explosive, and then you throw on everything on top of that. I wish there was legal ramifications for the NHL. I know if they settle, then it's all cut and dry, but I wish there was some law they were breaking or something like that, so that they could actually be taken down in some respects, and Gary Bettman would be out, but unless it reaches that point, they're going to try and skirt this like they have everything. And it's going to be hopefully not a disappointing end, but I'm not rooting for them to just have this settled and go away for sure.
Not a lot of faith, huh?
No.
Why should we though?
Yeah.
Should we?
Well, no, I'm not saying we should. No, certainly
well,
not.
Then they can kiss my ass.
No, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
No, the only way that this is anything like this gets reported and has actual information behind it is because of the wonderful journalism we see from people like Rick Westhead and Katie Strang. Because if it was up to anything up within the game, we would never hear about these stories and these awful things, and they would just keep going. So thankfully, we have people like that to actually do some work here and not just let the NHL get away with all of this nonsense.
No, and the NHL supports good journalism. Sorry, I've just been handed a note that says they try to freeze them out of 45-minute press conferences. Sorry, my mistake. You can see how a mistake like that could have been made. That's one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that enough.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jesse, what were you saying?
The league sucks top down. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, lastly, with all the news yesterday, you might have missed this. John Chayka started the day off with writing an article on Sportico, which is sort of like a business website for sports, and it's written by him, but it's titled "NHL's Youngest Ever GM Reveals Some Hard Lessons Learned." And I guess what happened to John Chayka and what happened with the Coyotes within the last couple of years. I mean, I think we'd know a lot more were it not for the pandemic. The pandemic has sucked up a lot of oxygen, and actually, I have concerns about that in general. What is slipping through the cracks in the NHL or in sports or in news because we have so many reporters on COVID? We're talking about COVID, reporting on COVID. What are the case numbers? 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 What else is happening here where these reporters that would have actually been assigned to other stories, and that's a shrinking group, by the way, because of all the cutbacks, what's not being reported? Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. We've almost relied, I think as a news cycle, we're relying far too much on COVID to generate the clicks that people want. And I think we need to get back to talking about things other than COVID. COVID's important. COVID is scary. COVID is all the things that you want to DM me about for sure. But we also need to talk about these other things because they're still continuing. And the John Chayka situation and the Arizona Coyotes situation is a situation to me that I was confused about at the time and that I remain confused about to this day. So if you remember, he was 26 when he was hired as the general manager of the Coyotes. He and Dubas were essentially kind of the first two guys of the analytics era GMs, but very different approaches and very different backgrounds. He ended a playoff drought. He ended an 8-year playoff drought for the Coyotes, but he also cost them a lot because I don't know if you remember this, but at first I'm going to read directly from a Sportsnet article when John Chayka's suspension kicked in. He was suspended from the NHL for an entire year, if you remember that. At issue appeared to be whether the team allowed, this is the Coyotes, Chayka to pursue another opportunity. Elliot Friedman reported about 1 month before the divorce, another NHL team reached out to the Coyotes asking for permission to speak to Chayka about a job. The request was initially denied, but later permitted, and an offer Chayka couldn't refuse was made. Friedman reported that the Coyotes made it clear that the titles general manager and or president of hockey operations could not be involved to prove that Chayka was not making a lateral move. Chayka's tenure with the club came under further scrutiny after a hearing on August 6th, when the Coyotes acknowledged they had violated the league's combine testing policy during the 1920 season by conducting physical testing on draft-eligible players prior to the event. At the end of the month, the organization was forced to forfeit its 2020 second-round pick, its 2021 first-round selection for its action. No discipline was handed down on any specific individuals on the case. So here's the other thing, guys, and I don't know if you even know this, but I had to ask around. And again, I'm not even sure if I can name the people I asked, so I'm not going to. But thank you to the people that clarified it for me. I said to a few people, okay, so run me through the timeline here. You know, the rumor was it was the New Jersey Devils / Philadelphia 76ers that wanted to hire John Chayka. What happened? So from what I understand,
the basketball team?
Yeah, it was because the Sixers and the Devils or something like that. There was some sort of connection. Are they owned by the same team? I don't know.
Oh, you know what? I think they are owned by the same group.
Same group, I think. Anyway, long story short, John Chayka signs this. I think it was an 8-year extension with the guy. It was a big, fat extension. Maybe it was 5 years, maybe it was 8. I don't know. I might have that wrong. And like the next day wants to go. And then from what I understand, and again, more of this needs to come out because it was never really clarified. And then the COVID pandemic hit. He told the Coyotes, I'm not going over to this other organization to do that. I'm going to be in a leadership role. It's going to be with both, the Devils and 76ers. Again, this is the story I've been told. And then it turns out, and they find out that, oh no, he's going to be directly involved in management decisions. He will be akin to a general manager, even if they're not giving him the title. So literally they're like, let's just white out the title of general manager and call him manager general. And that will be John Chayka. He is manager general of the New Jersey Devils. And I think, so what's happened though, is the suspension is now over, guys. He was suspended for an entire year. Suspension is now over. But what I've been wondering, and this is why this article is so interesting, is A, what happened, and B, well, you had an offer from the Devils, 76ers, maybe, possibly, probably. Did that just go away? Because he's formed his own company, lives in Niagara-on-the-Lake, not working in the NHL from what I know. What happened to that offer? If they wanted you that badly, wouldn't they have stuck around for 12 months to wait out your suspension?
I straight up thought he worked for the Devils.
No. He's always been an interesting character because he's truly an outside force in the game of hockey.
Sure.
He owns 12 Wendy's franchises, I believe. So he was never tied to the game financially or from like a career perspective. He could always just go fuck off and do whatever he wants because he owns a bunch of Wendy's. He's a business mogul. And then he starts Stathletes and they bring him on. And it was always going to be this innovative hire. And it's disappointing that he didn't work out. But it's also shocking that another NHL team wouldn't come knocking afterwards. And maybe that's still on the table because his suspension was it just ended. So maybe there are still teams coming. But John Chayka should be in the game. He should be in some sort of sports just because he's a business. He's a great mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
agreed.
So it's shocking that there's no deal out there for him.
So to run you through the article, and I'm not going to do the whole thing. I do encourage you to read it. It's in Sportico, but he talks about imposter syndrome and he defines it. And he said, though I couldn't identify it at the time, I was experiencing what psychologists call imposter syndrome. First coined in the 70s, this phenomenon typically affects high achievers who attribute their success not to their own abilities, but to a fluke or grand good luck. Imposters feel like a fraud destined to fail, despite a mountain of evidence to the contrary. I think everybody's felt that to some extent, right?
Sure.
You get into a job you're brand new at, and you're like, how the hell did I get here? Am I any good at this? Am I going to last here? That sort of thing.
I never played hockey, and this is what I do for a living.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He says, driving to the arena in my first days as GM, I remember fixating on my resume, working to talk myself into a degree of self-confidence. I'd majored in business school at a top school, graduating at the top of my class. I'd been in hockey all my life in one form or another, beginning with countless hours in a backyard rink in Canada to founding the gold standard of hockey analytics, Stathletes, with my brother-in-law in his basement. I was also overseeing a restaurant portfolio with a larger staff and more expansive operations than my eventual position with the Coyotes. He said, now we now operate over 30 restaurants, employ over 1,000 people, and I sit on the board of Wendy's Canada. Who knew? That's crazy.
I had no idea.
Only in retrospect did I fully grasp that this fear and self-doubt was strength in disguise. Now, then he goes into his, and this is where I really want you to pay attention, because I can't figure out I understand that this is an article about sort of leadership and about believing in yourself, but it does feel like there's a message trying to be sent here, and I can't figure out what it is. So I'm hoping that you guys can help me. So I'm going to read some stuff, and I'm just taking highlights.
I'm going to close my eyes and listen really hard.
This is on his time with the Coyotes. 5 years removed from those initial doubts, and now I see now that my years leading an NHL team taught me several lessons, the most important of which is that leadership is hard, and that's okay. These fears you feel, despite what your brain says about your qualifications, are a natural element of achieving outsized successes and of helping those around you to transcend their own fears and limits. Excuse me for a moment. I have to cough. During my tenure and partnership with another young leader, team president Aaron Cohen, the Coyotes set franchise records in ticket sales, TV ratings, corporate partnerships, and philanthropic contributions. There was no magic to these achievements. We reached our goals by rolling up our sleeves and leading in every sense of the word. We made genuine connections with the community, investing time in listening and learning about the challenges of others, and leading our organization with a clear vision for the future, a vision that made people proud to represent our team. On the ice, we spent efficiently and punched above our weight, finally ending an 8-year playoff drought. And then here's what he says on leaving the Coyotes. I've declined many media requests to discuss my departure from the Coyotes in 2020 because the truth is it was hard. However, it's also true that, like any good leader, I needed to make a hard decision, and this was the right one for myself and my family. While leaders are ultimately judged by their wins, they must also recognize when it is time to move on, and that's what I did. In hockey, and this is the finale, in hockey, in the quick service restaurant business, and in life, I have learned over and again that investing in people is what makes you a true leader. Practicing empathy and compassion is a competitive advantage that I can promise you. We sometimes look at leaders with rose-colored glasses and perceive only the glamorous parts of the job. The reality is it's much more complex. Leadership is hard. Making complicated decisions, particularly those that impact others, is hard, and that's okay. And that's sort of the end of it. So I picked and there might be some things that maybe you go back and you read the full article and because I'm not an Audible subscription, I'm not going to read the whole article out to you. But I was trying to grasp pieces of it that I thought were interesting. And from what I've told you, it's sort of, if I was reading it purely to be like, yeah, I can do this, like whatever my business challenge was, I'd be like, yeah, okay, here's a guy that did it and had self-doubt and did some things, right? And is successful in multiple areas, sports, quick service restaurants, whatever else. And he's founded a new company and lives and has a great family. But what I'm trying to figure out is from the hockey perspective. There's no mention there about what happened when he left the Coyotes, really. Talks about that it was time to move on, but not the story. And the story was because you tried to move on in the way that you did, you were suspended for a year. What happened?
That was going to be my question. Did he talk about why he was kicked out of the league for a year?
No.
Well, then it's a waste of time. Your story is you were kicked out of the league for a year. Why? If you don't answer that question, how do you view getting kicked out of the NHL for a year, a league that is legitimately hard to get kicked out of, as we discussed? Like, why? Why were you kicked out for a year? I want to hear your thoughts. And I'm sorry, I'm not interested in hearing how you run Wendy's.
But maybe, again, it is the sporting business magazine. I'm trying to figure out what the target audience there would be. I just
sports.
So for me, when I read this, I feel like he's trying to highlight some of the losses the wins that he had in Arizona that were perhaps overshadowed by how he left.
It feels like he's, especially in the early bits. I was just closing my eyes and listening to the sultry tones of Adam Wilde. It felt like he was writing a letter to himself, like a self-affirming. No, you are good at this. You are a good leader. These things that you do are good. You know what I mean? Like I didn't learn anything about John Chayka other than he runs Wendy's. That's all I learned from that article, and that means it's useless.
Jesse?
Yeah, it sounded like an open letter to himself.
Right? Dear Santa, I've been a very good boy, John Chayka.
Jesse, I might need you to turn up your mic again. I'm not really sure why, but you've gone down in levels again.
Okay.
Always need more Jesse.
Yeah. It's unsatisfying what I'm telling you, right? Because it's sort of like there's like a clear conclusion here. But what I'm trying to say is I read this and I was like, okay, it seems like there's something you want to say here, but I'm not getting it. And I wondered if I was the only one.
No, I think there's a reason this didn't get a lot of traction. All right. This is one of the things where you were like, why isn't everyone talking about this? Because he didn't say anything.
Well, Frege tweeted it out, but even then it didn't go anywhere, right?
Frege retweeting it can't make the article say anything. You know what I mean? He amplified nothing. If the article is nothing and it's amplified, you're amplifying nothing. It's like multiplying by zero. This thing. There's some math for you there, John. I'm not for or against John Chayka. I don't have a passionate opinion about him. But I do feel like I have a less passionate opinion about him after hearing that excerpt. I know less about John Chayka. What? Like, what was that? What was the purpose of this?
That's what I'm trying to ask. Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you, whatever it was, you failed.
Okay.
Because you're trying to convey. Surely he wasn't trying to convey nothing.
No.
But that's what I got from it.
There was a message in there. I'm just missing it.
I'll read the whole thing tomorrow when my brain is fully functional. It's not at the moment. I didn't learn anything about John Chayka from that.
I still want to know what happened. I'd love to know his take on it. I'd love to know what he has to say about it. But as he said, he's turning down media requests, so probably he's not going to come on the show to talk about it.
Like the Coyotes blasted him.
They did. The owner he used the word disappointed.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear that.
I remember we were all very surprised when we talked about that. I remember the press release and, very strongly worded language. And he waits a year to tell us about a burger joint. If the plan was to get me to buy Wendy's after the show, he might have succeeded. I think
I could use a couple JBCs right now.
Oh,
love them.
I think I'm gonna get some shit. God damn it, John Chayka. All right, well, I'm gonna order some of that right now.
Well, there
but
goes the stock price.
Beyond that, I didn't get anything from that. I will say, like, I remember John Chayka's story sort of makes me reflect on myself a little bit, because, you know, there was a lot of hype around Kyle Dubas and there was a lot of hype around John Chayka, and it's because they were young in a rather old sport. In a sport where Paul Maurice is considered young, they were actually young, if that makes sense. In a sport where Sheldon Keefe is considered young, that dude's like 40.
Yeah, he actually is young. This guy is young. He's 26 when he took over.
He was 26 when he took over.
It's insane.
I'm not saying you can't hire a 26-year-old to be the general manager of a hockey team. Some people are special and exceptional. I can tell you with confidence, I had not lived enough life by 26. And I think that's important. I'm not saying 26-year-olds can't be smart enough or savvy enough, know enough about business, know enough about hockey. I'm simply saying by age 26, I had not lived enough life.
Emotional intelligence, Steve.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
The ability to relate, have empathy, to say I've been there before. Sometimes we need that from our leaders, right? Sometimes it's more than just them being smarter than us. Sometimes it's from your leaders you need, hey, I've struggled with the same thing and here's how I got through it.
So,
and how many of those things have you been through at 26?
And he mentioned that in the article.
Yeah.
So should the title of the article, should the body of the article be, I turned 33 this year? That's all I learned, man. That's all I learned. But
okay.
If he's in a weird place, like it's almost like a cry for help.
I wondered if it wasn't like a reset on our last our last impression of him.
Like, is that
last we heard of him, he was suspended.
Is that au revoir to the NHL?
No,
is that what he's saying?
I wondered if it was hey, I did some good things. Why don't you let me back in? I wondered if it was that.
Is that his appeal to Gary Bettman?
What's that?
That's his appeal to Gary Bettman. I made the Coyotes some money.
Yeah, well, he'd be the only one.
Does this come on the heels of the Coyotes have had nothing but bad news of late?
Well, and I've got all that for you if you guys didn't cover it on Monday. Did you guys do you have all the city council stuff? Yeah.
No, I don't. Okay. Oh, Adam, I don't have the strength.
Let me run you through it. It's really easy. It's not hard to understand.
If
Craig Morgan.
No team has made us talk about city council more than the Coyotes.
I know.
Although the Flames are trying.
So here's the situation, guys, and I'll explain it really quick. Craig Morgan did an incredible job of explaining this, and I encourage you to follow at Craig S. Morgan. But the Coyotes, as of right now, do not have enough votes on Tempe City Council to get the arena deal done. And Account for Hockey, who is a great follow, pointed this out about 3 weeks ago and rightly deserves the credit for bringing it to life, because at that time, Coyotes fans especially, it's just the Toronto media at it again. Well, it turns out that report was very close to accurate, if not completely. Per the sources, and this is from Craig's article, and Craig is the most trusted source you can find on the Coyotes, there are 3 yes votes, 2 no votes, and 2 votes that are undecided, but leaning towards no after the Coyotes' recent failure to pay their taxes and bills came to light. Quote, the Coyotes certainly aren't doing themselves any favors with the negative news stories, one source said. I would imagine if another negative story comes up, or if owner Alex Murillo or his organization or their business practices, if another story comes up about that, it will probably die. Those stories hurt tremendously. Because if you're on city council and you sign these guys up for this, and I'll explain what they're going to get signed up for in a second, and then you've brought in an organization that has a history of not paying its bills, and then they don't pay their bills, people are going to look at you and go, what did you think was going to happen, man? Right? What did you think was what have you seen so far? And then you get voted out and you lose your position, right? Also, you're trying to protect the public purse. So here's what's nuts about this story, guys. And this is why this story is so fascinating. And I know city council stuff's boring, but check this out. The Coyotes aren't even up against any competition for this spot with Tempe. The city wants a professional sports team, and they asked people to apply for it. So check this out. On September 2nd, the city of Tempe reported the Coyotes were the only group to submit a proposal in response to its request for proposals for a project incorporating a professional sports franchise and an entertainment district for 2 parcels of city-owned land totaling 46 acres at the northeast corner of Priest Drive and whatever Parkway, doesn't matter. Proponents of the deal worry that if the deal is turned down, the Coyotes could pursue another nearby arena in Salt River, Pima, Maricopa Indian community. And again, that's what it's called. It would be right on Tempe's border, but Tempe would get all the problems, including traffic, and none of the tax revenue. The land site in question for development was previously used as a sand and gravel mining operation. It will require, we're probably looking at something like $70 million to bring it up to code. The Coyotes were going to pay more than half of that for their parcel of it. And remember this, the Coyotes have nowhere to go at the beginning of next year. So the Coyotes are literally the only bidder for this. It's a gravel pit. The city does not want to lose a professional team because they could just go next door to the next district. And then Tempe has to deal with the bullshit of them being literally on the border, right? With no revenue. And they still might vote no. They still might say not interested. And this is also crazy. Remember this from the beginning of the year. And this is the Gila River Arena. The Coyotes do not have a lease there for next year. The Coyotes are good for this year, guys. But 22-23 season, they do not have a place to play.
Here's why. Here's Tempe's hesitance with not wanting a team despite wanting a team.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they want a team? Money.
Tax revenue.
What do the Coyotes lack entirely?
A way to make money.
There you go. But I do have an idea. I read an article about a young man named John Chayka. And they should hire him and bring him back to the... man, I just... Listen, we, at the beginning of our show that has been around for a long time, we're sort of on the side of maybe the Coyotes should leave. Then we spoke to enough Coyotes fans that we were like, all right, the Coyotes shouldn't leave, but we're quite tired of talking about this. Mm-hmm. Then we evolved to Coyotes fans, we love you dearly, but I'm so sick of talking about this. And now I think I'm just about ready to get to Coyotes fans, I love you dearly with all my heart, but perhaps they should move. Dude, how long are we gonna do this?
So okay, but then okay, so the ownership group is still there. What other city is going to take them if they're not known for paying their taxes?
Houston.
No, I think the NHL wants to expand there. Remember, moving a franchise is not profitable for the NHL. They want an expansion tag. They want the $1 billion it's going to take to start a new franchise in the NHL.
So let's call the Coyotes what they are, a decoy. They're a decoy team that barely exists for the purpose of TV deals. And they're going to expand to Houston come hell or high water, where they will get a bunch of money for it. And a lot of that money is going to go to keeping the decoy afloat. You ever see your hockey team practice with those fake defensemen?
Yeah,
That's the Coyotes.
All right.
As the Leafs get set to play them tonight, and I assume
we'll now lose to them.
5-3 Leafs loss. But dude, they don't make money. They don't pay their damn taxes. They don't win any games. What are they for? What are they for? They're a scarecrow in the middle of a field. That's it. That's what they're for. The logical solution is to move them to Houston, but they want to expand there, so they're a scarecrow.
What eventually led to Atlanta losing the Thrashers to Winnipeg was a roughly $130 million in losses over 6 years, and then ownership selling to True North, who moved it to Winnipeg. So if the losses continue to pile up and you get the Arizona ownership to finally sell again after just buying the team, maybe that is the final nail in the coffin that moves the team over to Houston. If you get this ownership group, because I think this ownership group will try and stick it out no matter what, and they'll probably have the thumbs up from Gary to just keep plugging away, keep trying in Arizona. But if this group is forced to sell like all the previous ones have had to do, then probably that's it. The next one comes in and they buy it and they move it somewhere.
So this ownership group too, to add to your point, Jesse, their specialty is buying distressed properties and then rehabbing them and then selling them at a profit. The Coyotes are a distressed property. They are. And it's not, listen, I know Coyotes fans get really upset about this, and I completely understand in the sense that like you think that we're attacking you or attacking the crest. We're not. This is attacking the way that the business is done behind the scenes. And
it's not,
we're not trying to invalidate your fandom, because I think it's it's breathtaking that anyone still cheers for this team, given what's happened.
I think there was a time where we all thought no one in Arizona liked hockey. We know that's not the case, but this team cannot run itself. It can't run itself. So that to me is where the NHL has to step in, or someone involved has to get a clue, because you have a giant metropolis and there's a bunch of hockey fans there.
Steve, I'm going to say that, hey, the NHL did that already and owned the team for like half a decade while they tried to make it profitable and eventually sold it to the new ownership group. The NHL tried, they owned this team themselves. They tried to make it work, and now we've reached a point where it's not working again.
I'm trying to be kind. So how many things on the let's try this list do we have to get down before we stop being kind and we go, that's enough?
Because we've done all the things on the list.
A city with no team doesn't want you. No, hey, we want a professional sports team. And the Coyotes go, hey. And they go, no. Not you. No, we said professional. That's how bad it is. When are we done? I'm not saying I want this to be done. I don't. Quite the opposite. I hope the Coyotes stay in Arizona forever. When are we done?
Also, losing doesn't help. They need to try and win.
No, well, that's what all the draft picks are for. I mean, the value of the team is going to go up. The value of the team is going to go up. You know when it's going to go up? Here, what date is the draft? I think it's July 7th. That is the day the value of the Arizona Coyotes will skyrocket.
Yeah, Shane Wright's going to be a great Coyote.
There you go. And it's going to go right up. But until then, toilet.
I think you give the group a couple more years here before we call it quits. At least if this is what they specialize in, let them try, and also let the management group turn it around. They're clearly in a rebuild phase. Let's do it. What better time than right now?
Do you remember when they signed Taylor Hall?
Yeah.
No, they traded for
Taylor Hall. Yeah.
And they were really good, and then got really bad. I wanted to hear about the Taylor Hall trade in that article. We didn't get it.
No, we didn't. So anyway, long story short, that's where we're at. I think, the show has gone on quite long. And so I think that we won't do the press conference today, but we leave you with a lot to think about. Definitely interested in hearing your Chayka decoded encryption messages on our Discord. Go to sdpn.ca to sign up for that. And we love you. And I think that's it, right? That's it. We're done.
Just a quick update from Elliot Friedman. Hearing NHL has notified teams it is investigating process of Evander Kane crossing border from U.S. into Canada on December 29th. Kane tested positive for COVID on December 21st and flew to Vancouver on the 29th. In termination notice from San Jose, it was alleged he did not have proper medical clearance. NHL is now doing full investigation. This will likely prevent Kane from signing in the short term as teams await the results.
Wow.
So...
Dan Milstein's got to put down the phone.
He'll have a deal in place long before that's wrapped up.
I badly want to know what Dan Milstein's getting out of this because I don't think he needs this shit.
No, he definitely lost some agent profit there, right? If the contract was terminated, he lost his commission on that.
Yeah.
It wasn't his commission to be had.
Oh, it wasn't? That wasn't his agent when he signed it?
No.
Right, because Kane fired his agent, a couple months ago?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I don't know what he's I don't know what he's getting out of this.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. We will see you Friday. Thanks so much for all the nice messages. Health is good and really appreciate it. We'll be back in studio next week. Remote on Friday. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you then.
The Steve Dangle Podcast. Follow the guys on Twitter at Steve_Dangle, at Adam WYLDE, and at Jesse Blake. Connection complete.